All right, well, this is a follow-up to my video on evolutionary psychology, and I probably should have left that one video open for comments because I make a habit of, if I do a math, a science, or a set theory video, I do leave it open for comments still. It's just if I do one on maybe subjects that are more philosophy or more out there, I don't want to deal with 500-word drive-bys. But those comments that are math and science or set theory are still open for comments, and I'll probably leave this one open for moderated comment too. But it's good in a way that I didn't, because what I got was a personal message from a student of evolutionary psychology that was very well thought out and actually addressed my points. Now, my points, to synopsize what my argument was: how do evolutionary psychologists define themselves as a strictly hard science when their claim is that there's a particular behavior had to be the result of some adaptation to something in the environment 3 million years ago on the savannah, but we can't test that, we can't prove it. Meanwhile, we have the conundrum of the fact that primate social behavior is so diverse, and that if you look at chimps and bonobos, they only differentiated 2 million years ago, but look how different they are, and we're equally related to both. And so I then posited the idea that maybe culture itself is a selective process, would tie into some form of sexual selection among, and so the more social and the more intelligent, because the two tend to go together, an animal is, the more maybe intelligence is selected for. If you look at dolphins, they're social animals, they're very intelligent. If you look at chimps and bonobos, they're social animals, they're very intelligent. If you look at people, we're social animals and we're also very intelligent, at least as far as, not as far as taking care of our environment, but as far as developing the technology to foul it up. But anyhow, that's another subject. And then I assured this individual, when they were questioning what I was trying to say on that last video, that this is not a creationist quote-unquote video. It's that I'm not questioning evolution itself. I'm questioning some of the assumptions made. Okay, and this is what they wrote. I knew it wasn't creationist blank, LOL. Can't read caca words on the air. Sorry about that, but YouTube has its hand on my mouth. Your concerns raise questions actually worth thinking about. Well, thank you. It just was difficult to understand your question. What? Difficult to understand? Long-winded? No, not me. I don't go on and on and on about anything. No. I agree with you. I have read many... yeah, I do a little bit. Okay, I'm trying to tighten that up. I agree with you. I have read many speculative narratives. Poorly done science. The deal has not been sealed for me either. However, I think that you'll agree that properly done, the field can make some groundbreaking discoveries and answer new questions. This is why I aspire to do research in it. I'd rather develop a field than join an established one. Well, that's good luck to you, and I can already tell from what I've read here that you will make excellent contributions. You will be a great student, a great researcher, a great professor, and a great subscriber, so push that button. We can explain all mental processes through an evolutionary view. Complex systems evolve gradually. Just as our eyes are not the result of just one mutation, neither are emotions. Fair enough. AKA, evolutionary psychology is not behaviorism or cultural evolution. Well, no, but it's going to have to be if it's really going to have a whole field view. I mean, you can't compartmentalize too much. I think that's the point I was making in my video, is that the hard sciences and the humanities have to go back and forth and collaborate. Otherwise, you're not going to get a complete picture. It does not purport that psychological mechanisms are always selected for. For example, a current hypothesis on the evolution of our developed consciousness purports that consciousness itself was not selected for. Instead, it purports that an energy-efficient brain was selected for, and that consciousness was simply a byproduct of our evolved, more efficient cortex. Okay, skepticism time here. If you have a social species that starts to develop tools, and let's say it develops fire or something, but it develops tools and it now has a more complicated social environment that an individual needs to adapt to, would not intelligence be selected for? To adapt to, would not the development of the tools or the development of complex social systems be its own selective pressure for intelligence? I'm not denying necessarily that the more efficient cortex, yeah, that too. If you can have a more efficient cortex that doesn't take energy from the rest of the body, and that would create a bias towards an adaptation of a larger and larger brain potentially, but that would be in order to have intelligence, it would seem. Okay. Well, similar. That's my lay opinion there. But I also note that there's a theory out there that the development of fire had a lot to do with our larger brains because fire released more energy from the meat. Okay, and that's interesting, and that's, by the way, culture, if true. But also, it would the whole idea of having a larger cortex is to have a larger brain. I mean, that would myself seem like common sense. But anyway, similar byproduct models are seen in many hypotheses in the field. All living things and their mechanisms, whether it be wings, flagellum, or intellect, are the result of an evolutionary process. Evolutionary psychology figures that process out. I think that your concerns may be based on a common misconception. Evolutionary psych does not claim that all mind processes themselves are adaptations. Okay, fair enough. It claims that all mind processes, like any other biological trait, are the result of evolution, though, whether they were naturally selected for, co-evolved with other traits, byproducts of a different adaptation, etc. Okay, by byproducts of a different adaptation, can you also say byproducts of the adaptation towards greater culture? Could that fit? Because if you're going to do that, then you're going to have to bring in the anthropologists, whether human or primate. You're going to have to bring in, you can't then compartmentalize like you seem to be doing, that, well, evolutionary psychology just focuses on this, but not that. I don't think one can really do that. I think that the diversity of behavior in human cultures is a result of just that, human culture. But I think your question should be addressed to a different field, sociocultural evolution. Okay, but see my above response there. A question for evolutionary psychology should not ask why there is a diversity of cultural behavior, but how humans develop the ability to have cultural behaviors in the first place. For example, can the fact that we have diverse religious ideologies be explained by adaptation is not really a good question for evolutionary psychologists. A better question for evolutionary psychologists would be, is religious belief an adaptation? Which is a question we are studying right now. I think you're be interesting to go into, I'm interested in the history of religion, so I'm curious what conclusions are being drawn from that. That'd be an interesting follow-up video. Although as I stated before, I'm not a quote-unquote creationist, as the term is used. I also am skeptical of reductionisms. Although I have been humoring a lot of them in this video, I'm skeptical of the idea of, well, religion is an adaptation to the idea that we have different berries in a tree and they form a pattern, and human beings need to be able to form a pattern. I think the more logical possibility is that religion arose in cultures and they arose in groups of people, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see. I'm not going to comment any further. I'd be curious to see what you guys have come up with. But all right, your last question though I think is a good one, of course, and this is the one on software. The idea of maybe the software model is a better explanation of mind than the hardware neurochemical model. Or maybe you need both. Okay. Your last question, though, I think is a good one. Of course, this is just speculation, but I think the ability to, quote, replace your software, i.e. go from Christian to atheist, may be highly adaptive. And I might also add, go from atheist to Rastafarian, or Marxist to Buddhist. Why not? Or conservative to anarchist, or, anything else. Any other wonderful adaptation that I can think of that would be interesting. But I digress. High plasticity in behavior or personal ideology could assist in learning new info or skills and adapting to a variety of environments or social circumstances. Anyway, again, I agree that this type of speculation reaches too many conclusions without proper scientific experiment in the field. But I hope to change that someday. And I believe you will. I think you've definitely, it sounds like you've got what it takes. You're gung-ho, and I wish you good luck. And it's been a pleasure dialoguing with you by PM and by this method. By the way, I looked a little bit at this individual's where he's going to school, and I can tell he's he's definitely a Sharpie, and I'm not going to challenge what he's saying. I think that these are valid areas of study. What I'm saying, though, is I'm just advocating for what I would call a cross-disciplinary model, where you don't just look at one model, but you consider models from both the hard sciences and the humanities together. Thank you.